All right. We were looking at some syllogisms, or what were claimed to be syllogisms, and we're going to take this one right here and look at it. We'll take it, look at it. So I want to pull this down here, and we'll drop it in so we can have us a pattern. All right. Let's go to the conclusion, and let's his chiding of his opponent here. We'll separate that out. All right. And he is saying here, let's see what he's saying. He's saying the correct and logical conclusion should be, therefore, women must wear covering everywhere she prays. That's what he's claiming. That's his conclusion. Now, when we get into the next chapter, we're going to get into what's called enthymemes. And I had thought something like this: if we take and reconstruct take his conclusion and put it as a conclusion down here, that's what I want to do. We're going to make that his conclusion. We're going to see what he's claiming here. He says that should be your conclusion. He said, his opponent says, concludes women must always wear a covering. And I think that would be misrepresenting their view. There's no justification for it being dishonest or misrepresenting your opponent. That's a strict no-no. It may win the debate for you, but it's going to get you in trouble with God, because dishonesty can cause you to lose your soul. So don't ever do that. Don't ever be dishonest with your opponent. All that, if he sees your dishonesty, makes it harder and harder, more difficult to convert him. You would like to convert your opponent, at least if you're thinking right, you would. So let's try this. I'm sorry, I hit the wrong key. I got to go back and redo it. All right. Here's what his conclusion should be. Women must wear a veil or covering whenever she prays. So we're going to take that and put it up here. Let's put it right here. And I want to say all women, conclusion. Make it universal. And if we're going to make it like they normally would have it, we're going to say women are those. Everywhere they pray. Right? Not misrepresenting his position, I don't think. And so our middle term, and we'll color it kind of a purple color, violet colored. And so I want to make it violet. And so that's my middle term. And so in here, since we have all down here, we're going to have all up here. So it's got to be universal. All women. I'll make this black. That's your verb. So it's just, all right. Now, let's take our, I'm sorry. That's okay. That's our minor premise. All right. Now then, those who must wear a covering everywhere they pray would have to be his major term. Okay. Okay. Well, let's take our major premise. It's got to be all. It has to be universal because this one's universal. They all have to be universal. Now, those who must wear all something, I'll put spaces, and those who must wear a covering everywhere they pray. So that's your major term, so that's got to be red. I'm color coded so we can follow it. So we can follow it. You have it on the video, see it. Now what I need is I need a middle term. We have all we need except that middle term. Now then, that's what he's saying that it ought to be saying. All women must wear a covering everywhere. All women, and I think he means all women, must wear a covering everywhere they pray. Right? We'll make it good grammar. So right here we need a middle term. That's what he needs. Right? All something, and we could word this, and probably this would be acceptable to him. All those all right. Now this will be your middle term. So we'll make that purple. All right. I think he would agree with this argument. I say all those in 1 Corinthians 11 say must wear a covering when they pray are those who must wear a covering everywhere they pray. Everywhere they pray. So that's probably what he's meaning. But you see, the problem here, look at his major premise. The whole thing hinges on whether 1 Corinthians 11 teaches it or not. Does that make sense? So the problem is his major premise begs the question. It gets back to the point. What does 1 Corinthians 11 teach? Right? I don't see how he can. He can come up with another middle term, this purple one, but he needs to, in order to get this conclusion, he needs a middle term that is correct and is not begging the question, not assuming what he's trying to prove. Any questions? All right, I'm going to get rid of that. All right, I'm going to bring this down here again. And we're going to look at the next one. Here's a problem. I want to make this go down with the same page, so I'll insert a page break so it'll stay together. Now then, let's take his conclusion and see what he has. No one today prays or prophesies. He misspelled prophesies, but if your opponent misspells a word, leave it alone. I mean, you won't help your cause by pointing it out. And you look arrogant. And people make mistakes. That's not what the debate is about, whether you can spell or not. So no one that today prays. So this is a negative argument. This argument is negative. Any questions now? So what's our form of a negative syllogism? All S or P. No P or what now?
Well, if it's a negative, then we would have SRN.
All right.
Let's
go back over. I'm going to get out of this and we're going to go over and get our form. All right. I think I have this form. Maybe I can give you the page number and that'll help you. Okay. Let me give you the page number in your book. All right. I want to get out of
it. Marion, is this a categorical syllogism?
Yes.
Okay, should the minor premise be some
what's the negative? Right,
negative?
I'm gonna get out of it right now. Okay. Then we're gonna. Here's our four forms that we have right here. All right. We have all S or N, all C or S, all C or N. Okay. That's a form. That's an affirmative. All S or N, some C or S, some C or N. This is a affirmative also. So that's not what we're looking for. This particular affirmative, universal affirmative. Right here is a universal negative, right here. And so we have all S or N. And so we have that form, all S or N. Go look at your form. And then minor premise, no C or N. And then conclusion, no C or S. And I always change that as to be a particular, be some C or not in. Okay. So we'd have that down there. We could have particular. And so we'd some C are not in. And so some C are not S. See the form now? Those are your forms. So kind of get those forms and have them handy for you. All right. Let me get out of it. Start sharing again. All right, are we back in now?
Yes.
Okay. So no one, and so we want no C. Okay. No one praying today. right? Right, so this is a negative. And we want the universal negative, so it's got to be that form. All S are in, no C are in, no C or S. Okay, right here. So let's take this right here. No. No one today. We got to reword his syllogism a bit. No one today prays or prophesies, IES. And I'll get rid of this. Correct. No one today is one prays or prophesies. No one today. No one today. Okay. So now no one today is your minor term. Okay. So that's your minor term. So that's got to be blue. We'll color it and get it blue. Now, the form of it, that minor term right there, right, should go right here. See, he doesn't have it right here. He needs it right here. So let's take his argument and let's say that's your conclusion, minor premise. The one today is, we'll make that black, linking verb. All right. Now then, your this is your major term, and so we're going to change this, make it red. I know I've spent a lot of time making this color, but maybe it helps us to see it. All right. Now, let's see what other information he has in here. The one today is, oh my. He's arguing here that this is spiritual gifts have passed away. So we got to bring spiritual gifts. All right. He's put this in, these two here, in this down here. We've taken his conclusion. We've done what we could. Now we need to work the spiritual gifts into it. That's the problem. Whenever they don't know how to construct a good syllogism, you pull your hair out trying to figure out what they're saying. And they're not making any sound arguments with this. All those who pray or prophesy, in the sense of 1 Corinthians, are those who are praying and prophesying in the age of miracles. I'm going to put that there.
Marion, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay, your major term is in the red, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and your
Minor terms in blue.
okay, where's your middle term at?
I'm trying to get it right now.
Okay.
We take his conclusion, we don't know what his middle term is. We reconstructed the red and blue from his conclusion. But now I'm giving a middle term that'll fit pretty much what he's saying. All right. All those who pray or prophesy in the sense of 1 Corinthians 11:12 through 2 through 16 are maybe we should say those who are praying, those who I'll make that. Is one who is praying. That's pretty good right there. All right. So that seems to be what he's saying, and it's in a form that's valid. It's properly constructed. All those who pray and prophesy in the sense of 1 Corinthians 11:2 through 16 are those who are praying and prophesying in the age of miracles. No one today is one who's praying and prophesying in the age of miracles. All right. Therefore, no one today is one who prays and prophesies in the sense of 1 Corinthians 11:2 through 16. This is the argument made by the man who's arguing against women wearing the veil or wearing a covering when they pray. Okay. All right. I don't think his argument's sound. Okay. I think that we can show another argument, and while this is true, this major premise is true, and the minor premise is true, I don't think its conclusion is necessarily true. Okay. Right. So that seems to be pretty much what he's saying. We have brethren that have argued that 1 Corinthians 11 doesn't apply to us because it deals with miracles. And so it doesn't apply to us. And I believe I can prove it does. Okay. All right. And 1 Corinthians 14, they also argue it doesn't apply on the role of women, okay, because it's miraculous. This was an argument that has been made a long time ago by our brethren. I believe it's unsound, okay. And brethren that are considered to be sound have made this argument. Go ahead now with your question.
Marion, on the conclusion, would it be correct to put, instead of is, I'm trying to put the word all in there so it would match up with in the major premise, your first term, your major term. Could you put it therefore one today are all who pray and prophesy in the sense, or would that be incorrect?
That'd be incorrect.
That'd be in, okay,
Yeah, it's correct because this is a universal negative here.
okay,
And when you have a negative in one of your premises, your conclusion has to be negative. Right?
yeah.
That's a rule.
Oh,
Right. Does that help?
well, let's see, let me look at it. Therefore, no one today. Okay, yeah, that would, I see what you're doing now. Okay, all right, that answers it.
Now, what I'm saying is, no one today prays or prophesies in the sense. He's arguing that prayer is linked with miraculous. And I've agreed that sometimes they did have miraculously guided prayer. I believe that did occur, but I don't think it has to be limited. Let me illustrate this. The Great Commission that we think of in Mark 16, verses 15 and 16, we understand that that applies today by implication. Now, it wasn't spoken to us, but the scriptures clearly mean that we need to teach that the one has to believe and be baptized to be saved. Does that make sense, everybody? And so we can preach that just like they did. But verses 17 through 20, there's some miraculous stuff in there, and it was limited for that time. And so, but there might even be principles in the exercise of miraculous gifts that would still apply to us today. So we'd have to separate each individual thing out separately. So the fact that it was in the context of miracles doesn't mean it was ended any more than baptism and repentance and belief and baptism ended, because they're in the context of miracles. Does that make sense? In verses 17 through 20 of Mark 16.
Yes.
So we got a problem there with this way of thinking is wrong. And in the logic book, and I believe I have it in this material here as well in this course, we'll be showing that later, okay? Any questions? Now this will have his argument pretty well laid out, all right? All right. But he says the scriptures do not teach. So a problem here is, let's look at his syllogism down here. All right. We're going to go ahead and take this off now, and this is recorded. You can look at it later. Okay, I want to get rid of it. We're going to take our major premise. It's here. We're going to go down here and do this again. I hope this is not too tedious. We're trying to see how we can look at this. Therefore, the scripture do not teach that women must wear an artificial, I misspelled artificial covering in the assembly today. Right? So he's claiming they do not teach. So let's see this. The scriptures are are things that do not teach, that do not teach. Oh, scriptures teach. Let's just reword this. right. Okay. Let's go to a minor premise. All right. No scriptures. Scriptures. All right, there's your minor term. And scriptures that, and we could change that to something else besides scriptures or things that teach. I'm going to use scriptures, okay? And so all blank we might be willing to reword that. So that'll be red. Put it up. And now then let's look at what he's got in here. All right. Well, I have a hard time figuring out what he's trying to do here. Okay. No one's praised or prophesies in a sense. All right. He's got a negative here, but it's worded pretty awkwardly. Okay. He wants his middle term, one who prays or prophesies in the sense, or those who prophesy. This probably is about what he's saying. All right. Pretty close. All those who pray or prophesy in the sense of 1 Corinthians 11, 2 through 16 are, okay. See, the problem is that won't fit in. That just won't work. I think he's got four terms. I think he's got four terms in here. I think the problem, I think it's a fallacious argument because it's got four terms. I'm sorry. I'm having trouble. I get frustrated with some of this. Trying to figure these fellas out. This won't work. I apologize. I'm going to go on to something else. Let's try one more. I'd like to skip down and get a good one. See, look at this one right here. He has a negative in that premise, but he doesn't have the same thing negated here that he has here. All right. So it can't be valid. The argument's not valid. All right. No man has seen God, the Father, at any time, but men have seen Jesus. Therefore, Jesus is not God the Father. Now, his argument may be good, but it's not correctly framed. Okay. We'd have to check it here, see if it's even valid. What form would this be? Is this an A-type proposition? E-type proposition. Okay, we got an E-type proposition. All right. And you'd say this would be an I-type proposition. Some men have seen Jesus. Would you agree to that?
Yes.
Because I haven't seen Jesus.
So since we got a negative in the E-type, we got to have a negative. We can have an E or an O-type proposition in the conclusion, but we can't have an E-type. We have to have an O-type proposition.
Square of opposition, that would contradict each other.
Yeah. So his form is not right. It won't work. I agree with his conclusion. I agree with his major premise. I agree with his minor premise. But I don't agree with his argument proves his conclusion. Does that make sense? All right. All right. Let me do this. We can construct this into another kind of syllogism and maybe make them good. We'll need to probably do that. All right. I'm going to go back down here. All doctrines, this is in the Conley-Hicks debate. All doctrines which are not in the Bible are doctrines which no man shall be, by which no man shall be judged. Right? Right? The doctrine that's unscriptural divorce, remarried must get out of their remarriage. The doctrine is not in the Bible. Right? We got two negative premises. All right. See, not and not. You can't have two negative premises. Okay. So that's not a sound, not a valid argument.
Also, I mean, he's basically saying all explicit doctrines because he's not using implication, which is binding.
Yeah.
So the major premise is not sound, anyways.
He hasn't defined his word doctrine. He's vague in his definition. That's your point. It needs to be explicit doctrines. Right. But again, he's got his first two premises are negatives, and you can't do that. That won't work. Okay.
But Marion, doesn't the word all there in the major, doesn't that, or the go back to that. Are you back on that one? Yeah, where it says all doctrine, doesn't that?
That makes it universal. That's okay.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at. Okay. I see your argument now. If it says all, that would include the scriptures.
Yeah,
Okay.
but you're not in the Bible. See, it's a negative.
Right. It's almost a double negative, isn't it?
Yeah. And man, and, which are not in the Bible. See, we got two premises that are got negatives in them. Can't do that. Can't have that. It won't work. And his conclusion is a positive, not a negative. So that's a mess. It won't prove anything. Okay. Okay. And I'd hate to be Brother Conley. You deal with people, and they throw this stuff out, and the people that are listening to it don't even know. They think, well, that sounds pretty good, right? But I know it's not sound right off because it's not valid. So I really don't have to deal with it, but I have to deal with an audience that can't see. That's where you get into problems. Right. Now let's look at Rodinier Sr. This is interesting. He that built all things is God. Now that's a universal, because there's only one God. So he is saying this is universal. Jesus, this is universal. Jesus, there's only one Jesus, what we're speaking about here. He that built all things is God. Jesus built all things. Therefore, Jesus is God. I believe that argument is sound.
Could we, at number 3, would it be just as sound if we said, if it would have said that Jesus is of the Godhead?
Well, if he that built all things is the Godhead, if you had Godhead here, you could have it, you would have it here. Right? Is of the Godhead. Right? I think he's got it just like now. How do you want to reword it there? Go ahead there.
Well, no, I was just curious. In the argument, he, God, that built all things is God. But he, again, if we were to structure it, he, meaning God, that built all things is of God.
Well, I want you to know, Brother Lanier is accused of basically saying that the Father, Son, and the Spirit are the same person. He was accused of teaching that, right? So some of his wording here is a little bit.
But being accused and teaching is two different things.
I understand that. I'm not claiming he did. I'm saying some of his wording of stuff was confusing. Okay, could have been. He that built all things is God. I believe all three of the members of Godhead were involved in building all things. See, this argument here, although it's sound, Jesus is God. All those who built all things are deity. I would say that. Jesus is one who is involved in, all those who were involved in building all things are deity. Jesus is one who was involved in building all things, therefore Jesus is deity. Now that would be a good argument, and I would have no problem with it. But someone could take this and draw the conclusion that he was a oneness. he was fuzzy on some of his arguments. Okay, I have his book. I've studied it, but I'm not claiming he believed in that the Father, Son, and the Spirit were the same person. But some of his arguments appear to draw that conclusion. That's what I'm saying. If you're not careful, I'm not sure his wording right here. This could lead you to the wrong conclusion. I'm not saying he was teaching it. I'm just saying this could easily lead that way. All right. Any other questions? Let's try this one. I think it also came from Brother Lanier's book. That which exists before creation is uncreated. Don't we agree with that? That's universal, because there's only one uncreated. Well, there's three persons who are uncreated. Again, you get into this, he's used the singular. Okay. All right. Jesus exists before creation since he created all things. Well, he's given an additional argument since he created all things. Right? That's a proof of this point. So he's added this to it. It probably ought to be in parentheses. Probably ought to have it like this. And just have it like that. That's how I would have done it if I wanted to do that. Or I would put a footnote on it, since he created all things. Therefore, Jesus, and he says that as the word, he adds some more to it, is uncreated. He's uncreated. Right? So what we get into here is, let's see, there's his minor term. And minor term was, I believe it was blue. Let's make it blue. I'll just make it blue. I think it was. All right. Uncreated. That'll be red. All right. Now then, there's your minor term and there's your major term. Okay, I can get this uncreated up here, major term. That's okay. All right. All right. So this doesn't say exactly the same thing right here as this here. Although you can draw a conclusion of this from John 1. Does that make sense? Beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, see? All right. I'll make this purple. We can kind of see how that fits in. And make that purple. Now, it gives us a picture of what he's saying, right? And if he put this in parentheses here and not have it as part of it, Jesus will make this blue. And probably, that's about as good as we can do with his argument, okay? If we break this off and break this off and put this in parentheses, just as a way of explaining it and make it black, we'd be pretty close to having a decent argument, okay? All right. That's okay if we are able to do a little work, reworking on it. Any questions? Tell you what I want to do. We're to the end of our study here. We could go one more week, and I would like to go down there and look at this right here, Richard Rogers and his book. Okay, we try to do with that. But I tell you what, let's come back to it. Let's go to the next chapter on enthymeme in the book. And I'll go through that. We can come back to these later after we got a little bit of more information on enthymemes. So let's go into the next chapter in the book, enthymemes, right? Everyone okay with that?
Can I speak to you after the class?